It's that time of the year again. 2022 has blown over in a mostly unspectacular fashion, and video games have happened. We've got big releases like Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok, capping it with bits of fun here and there. For me, personally, it was the year of Vampire Survivors, and I don't know, Soul Hackers too. But just like any old set of 365 days, there's bound to be things that are disappointing and terrible. 2022's badness wasn't as egregious as previous years with its Popeye and Nerf Legends, but it was, at least to me, a lot more disappointing. There were several big profile releases that kind of just flopped out, got reviewed in the 6s and 7s, and went in one ear and out the other before the month was out. And that's a shame. I was looking forward to Saints Row, and then that happened. This happened even with things that should have been a total shoo-in. I don't think anyone was expecting Diablo Immortal to be as ridiculous with microtransactions as it is, but here we are. At least NFTs are dying out, even if they were essentially replaced with AI-generated art, which, okay, let's not get started. But if you're wanting to see some of the worst that gaming's offered in the past year, you've come to the right spot. So yo, it's Austin, and as is tradition, I've dug real hard and good to find some of the worst and most disappointing video games of 2022. For the most part, I played good and older video games this year, so in order to fill this out, I had to do a little bit of scouring, and I did exactly that. As usual, I'm gonna be avoiding indies and little micro titles because it's just kind of punching down, and you never know if it's just someone's first attempt at making a game, and that's no fun. Instead, I think I'm gonna spend a little time picking on small indie companies like Nintendo. Yeah, you know what's coming. So we've got a lot of games to trudge through, some of which took a lot of time, but thankfully I was able to keep myself energized and going with today's sponsor, Factor. The holidays are a busy time, and I've personally been trudging through so many different video games for this video in particular that it's been hard for me to, not eat on the go, and thankfully Factor's fresh, never frozen meals have hit the spot, and they're pretty healthy. So Factor is a deliverable meal kit that's cheaper than eating out and takeout a lot of the times these days. And with that, you get a no prep, no mess meal that comes with plenty of diet options like keto, vegetarian, vegan, and protein plus. This week, I'm a big fan of the Santa Fe green chili beef skillet, mostly because green chili is a top tier flavor, but also because it's delicious. But they also offer 34 different meals each week on top of add-ons, so there's plenty of options for anyone. Simply pick something out, toss it into the oven or microwave, properly plate the thing because it's almost 2023, and have yourself a nice and nutritious meal. I'm also a fan of their smoothies, because sometimes you want a quick boost that's not going to have you crash a few hours later. Factor's also owned by HelloFresh now, so if you put the two together, there's a huge variety of meals you can pick from, and you can enjoy a discount for both on me. So if you're busy these holidays or just want to try to start eating healthier this time of year, go to go.factor75.com/eruption60 and use the code eruption60 to get 60% off your first Factor box. Go show Factor some love, it helps out the channel a bunch, and I'm probably gonna go have another one right now. Thanks so much to Factor for the sponsor, but for now, it's time for bad video games, as well as disappointing ones. Obviously, since we're tossing both bad and disappointing into the same video, we're gonna be talking about two different types of things, so why not start with something that's a little bit of both? Despite being delayed for well over the year, Resident Evil Verse, whatever you wanna call it, is a total joke. I think the reviews were too easy on this one, although I think that's because it's technically a free update for anyone who owns Resident Evil Village, a fantastic game. But considering this was announced in January of 2021, had a beta in April of that year, then was delayed twice all the way to October of 2022 is bonkers. That original beta was met with a pretty mixed reception, so you'd think that the delay would result in a better product, but no, it sure didn't. Reverse is a weird concept. It's a free-for-all deathmatch, but one where you pick your favorite Resi hero who then transforms into a monster when they die. Ever wanted to see Ada Wong turn into Jack Baker? This is for you. It's a not terrible concept that feels not very good. You run around in a circle on one of 3 maps, collecting weapons, shooting other players, and then getting a second chance to kill more people when you die. You can become a stronger bioweapon by picking up these massive purple virus capsules that'll put you in a tier of higher enemies. You can be the jobber explodey dude that dies in 3 hits, all the way up to Nemesis. Sure. I'm not really sure who this is for. I feel like Capcom keeps throwing specifically Resident Evil multiplayer modes at the wall, hoping one will stick. I don't think that they've managed to recapture the magic of Mercenaries from 5, and they clearly want to make something work in the 2022 sphere. Battle passes? You got it. Gotta maximize my reverse dailies so I can unlock Claire with a tank top, or whatever this emote is. Also, there's no date on this thing. It's one battle pass. Is there gonna be another? Probably not. I'm going easy on this because it was technically free, even if it allows you to spend those precious dollarinos on microtransactions. And there is definitely a huge amount of potential in the concept. You'll just unfortunately spend a majority of your time getting stun locked by other players and respawning, since the time to kill is like half a second. But hey, at least I can unlock a classic ugly Mega Man attachment for my guns. Good old Capcom fan service. To be honest, I'd rather play Umbrella Corps. If anyone wants to play a decent multiplayer Resident Evil, just play 5, or heck, try Outbreak on a private server. At least those games have more than one song. What about something that's super disappointing, but also still technically good? A lot of games are getting ruined and messed with by weird publisher decisions and over-monetization these days, and this is happening more than it really should for different reasons. Point in case, Sonic Origins and Overwatch 2, two extremely different releases that are disappointing for two very different reasons. Sonic Origins is a bit of a mess. That's not a fault of the games, as Sonic 1 through 3 and Knuckles are solid. Well, most of them are. The problem comes in when you release a compilation that falls short of not just expectations, but what they've done in the past. The concept of Origins was great. You repackage the original Sega Genesis trilogy as a single thing, give them the widescreen treatment, and then gloss them up a little bit with some fantastic animated cutscenes by Powerhouse Studios and Tyson Hess. But for $40, this wasn't anything. Not only were the games available on the Sega Genesis collection on pretty much everything, but also as standalone versions on Steam and other platforms. But not before Sega removed them from individual sale. A classic move. Then when the thing came out, it was buggy. It had a lot of issues that weren't in the original games, and it was pretty baffling. There was a crazy glitch at launch where Tails would keep jumping off screen to constant jump sound effects over and over. Sega and the developer Headcanon of Sonic Mania fame caught a lot of flack for this. Then one of the individual devs went and made a huge public Twitter thread basically blaming Sega's internal changes for everything, and well, that's the kind of thing you do when you don't mind burning a few bridges. The only other major thing from this was the change in music on a few stages due to Michael Jackson's alleged involvement, which was then completely blown out of the water by punished Yuji Naka a few months later. So needless to say, it's been a busy year for the Blue Blur. Thankfully, Sonic got himself a decent release before the year was up, so 2022 wasn't all too bad for the Blue Blur. Still, Origins was a pretty low effort, clearly rushed out of the door product made for one reason: money. Speaking of money, Overwatch 2. Activision Blizzard and their terrible controversies aside, the core gameplay of Overwatch 2 is good. Well, I suppose that depends on the week. Overwatch has gone through all kinds of balance tweaks, with periods of people being really mad and really happy, but the whole Overwatch 2 debacle is something else. Simply put, it feels like a neutered version of something that was fine as is. Converting the thing into a free-to-play model, Overwatch 2 had me legit missing loot crates, and that's not something we should be saying. Previously, they've been releasing new heroes to play as in a sporadic fashion, usually accompanied by big trailers and events, but now they're running the 2022 favorite and something that's gonna come up multiple times in this video, the Battle Pass. But one that might actually be the worst iteration of it I've seen. Previously, if you gained a level in old school Overwatch, you'd be given a loot crate to open, maybe more if you did the bonus thing. Each crate has 4 items of varying rarity, with any duplicates turning into a currency you could purchase stuff with. Yes, this is technically gambling, but the amount of skins, sprays, and whatever you get in a single session was way higher. Now, you'd be lucky to get 2 or 3 items in a single day, and that's playing really hard with all of it predetermined. The Battle Pass, which now needs to have money spent on it, is extremely slow to level up. Last year we complained about Halo Infinite doing this, and this is worse in every manner. On top of that, each new character is tied to each pass, which isn't terrible in theory, but if you don't unlock them in this way, you have to buy them after the fact. So this popular thing that had ranked competitive gameplay that was not like that for quite literally 6 years is suddenly thrust into a new model that destroys the entire thing. Just starting Overwatch in 2023? I'm not sure why you would, but prepare to grind to unlock every character and spend the full price of a retail release to just have access to the roster. I haven't even gone into the other stuff. With the new balance being 5 people per team and 8 groups of 6, just had to kick the weakest link, which was probably me to be fair. Oh, also the PvE mode, the whole thing that Overwatch 2 was announced for in the first place, still nowhere to be seen, with a roadmap that simply says it's coming. Overwatch 2 went from a fun game to pick up and play into something you need to log into just to be caught up. It takes a lot of playing to make it through the pass at a decent rate, and when you have something like Fortnite out there quite literally setting the example of respecting players' times and unlocking things at a decent pace, Activision Blizzard's take on this is quite frankly embarrassing. Like, I'm gonna reveal my secret power. I started playing Fortnite with no build. I finished 2 full battle passes, and it didn't even take me that long, so I don't know what they're doing here. On top of that, they recently announced that Diablo 4 was also gonna be doing this, which puts all my hopes for that into the drain. There's still a lot of fun to be had with Overwatch 2 and the raw gameplay if you're able to look past a lot of the real world important issues, but their current form of monetization needs to change if they don't wanna have the consumers turn against them. Especially because in the future, you're probably gonna need to spend money just to counter a future broken meta. Oh, okay, I got a solution. Why not just ban the brand new character from Quick Play and Arcade? Good job, Blizzard. I think that it would be dishonest to say that both Sonic Origins and Overwatch 2 are bad games. They're just decent products wrapped up in a bunch of malarkey that's really unfortunate. But that's just part of what makes them so disappointing, the expectations. But you know what has no expectations? Licensed shovelware, and this year's got a bunch of it. There's a few publishers out there continuing the decades-old bad licensed game trend, and for that, I thank them. No, for real. This is dumb, but I've always thought that you should go out and play some shovelware to cleanse your gaming palate, or whatever we want to call it. Just like bad movies and tasting different cheeses. That variety is good. You ever wanted to play a Star Fox 64 clone based off of that DC Super Pets movie? Sure, go for it. Enjoy listening to not Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
I'm here to fight for truth, justice, and treats.
Enjoy your gaming.
But also, by no means should you play Quest for Excalibur Puy de Feu. I think that's how you pronounce it. You are currently looking at a PC port. This is not the Switch version. Published by Microids and developed by Balio Studio from Belgium, Quest for Excalibur is a licensed theme park video game. Similar to Universal Studios Theme Parks Adventure, Quest is based off of a popular historical theme park called Puy de Feu over in France. I am obviously not French, but looking at footage of this online from visitors and various trailers has me thinking that this is like medieval times on crack. It's built around the ruins of an old Renaissance castle, and honestly, seems kind of dope. The video game though? Not so much. You get to create your own character before entering Puy de Feu by yourself, and I of course made Pauly Shore Pinocchio, minus the hat. Then, invisible walls. Well, not really invisible, it's more like being stuck in the Thunderdome. I love that the opening tutorial says, from now on, like you accomplish something besides making a character. Also, proper capital letters and punctuation, overrated. Quest for Excalibur is basically a collection of mini-games as you unearth the secrets of the ancient 70s theme park. Along the way, you'll assemble the legendary sword, Excalibur, meet a mermaid, an actual wizard, and have to slowly strafe in order to hit a target that you missed. Don't worry. We'll make it one day. This is basically a glorified Wii shovelware release. Heck, it kind of looks like it too. Thankfully, most of the minigames are short, with the exception of the pole-throwing one. That's the worst one. Quest for Excalibur Puy de Feu is kind of a nothing burger, but it's one that at least taught me that there is in fact a medieval theme park in France, the 4th largest in the country. So yeah, I guess they got me. I'm going to Puy de Feu. You know, I tried to find myself another classic Game Mill Entertainment LLC title to play this year, and the only thing that I could really find that was close was Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3, but I just can't do it anymore. Sorry. But at least they have voice acting. It's still the same thing though. However, if you look at the cover, you'll see one small detail, and it's the one, the only Garfield. And it turns out he got himself a full video game this year, Garfield Lasagna Party. One made by the exact same developer as Quest for Excalibur. I didn't know until it was too late. Garfield Lasagna Party is practically what the name implies. You got lasagna, you got Garfield, and it's a party. But this time around, it's of the Mario variety, cause yes, this is a Mario Party clone. Although if you were expecting more than one map, something that you should expect, you're sorely mistaken. Lasagna Party is split into 3 different modes: Lasagna Race, Challenge, and World Tour. You'd think that World Tour would be the big Mario Party clone, but no, it's just Race. The other 2 are just ways to play the mini games inside. You can choose one of 4 total characters: Garf, Normal, Arlene, Odie, and jeez, the screen is just filled with garbage. I like how Garfield pops up like a rant Sona anytime he's trying to give you a tutorial. The goal here is is to get the most lasagna, basically stars, except these things come to you in big batches during the minigames, making this one clearly skill-based. There's a little element of strategy, as during each opponent's dice roll, you can use a consumable item to alter their roll, meaning yes, you can go backwards.
Oh, big roll. Big roll. If any of
So you go -1?
Wait, do I go
This game rules, dude. You can't put it in the video.
The minigames are what you'd expect, mostly terrible. A few are decent, but most of them are derivative of a Mario Party game or just awful. I love how on TikTok you can just close the door on other players and get them stuck in a loop. Look, Mario Party as a concept is inherently something that'll make you get into fist fights. So you toss a poor feeling Garfield IP into the mix and you got yourself a winner? Or a loser. One that totally has Persona vibes. The real question, like every other Garfield video game I covered in the past, is who is this for? And I have an answer this time. There's a distinct lack of Mario Party on non-Nintendo consoles and PC. So if you've been aching for that, you can thank Microids. Garfield Lasagna Party. Don't play this. Also, I'm pretty sure that this is what Sonic would look like without shoes. Speaking of lasagna and Italians, I guess, the shovelware doesn't end there because we still got the digital side. Last year I mentioned that there was an increased amount of trophy garbage, games that exist for like $1 to $5 that just get you a platinum trophy because why not? And well, it only got worse. You ever play Italian Journey? Hold that button down and get trophies. If you aren't feeling the scenic backdrop of Italy, you've also got Desert Journey, Monument Journey, Snow Journey, all games that'll get you a platinum trophy in like 30 seconds. Jumping pasta, make the pasta jump, got the platinum. These are obviously a complete waste of time, and if you're buying into this nonsense to farm an arbitrary award, you're not only cheapening what it is, but frankly making everything worse. So good job. Sony has actually announced that they're cracking down on this stuff because for a while there, browsing any kind of digital store on Xbox, PlayStation Network, or even the Nintendo eShop had you scrolling through a ton of games that didn't make any sense. What even is a Zump Jump? I only want to see high quality games like Furry Hentai Tangram, or of course everyone's favorite Sunday service, Breakthrough Gaming. They're still at it. Speaking of digital stores, the whole PlayStation Plus revamp was pretty disappointing. They positioned themselves to be competition to Microsoft's Xbox Game Pass, but have really fallen short in just about every manner. The updates are super sporadic, usually don't have new titles, and the 3-price tier system basically only gets you a library of older stuff. Meanwhile, I could boot up something like Gungrave Gore, Warhammer Darktide, or Chained Echoes Day 1 and get to it. That and PlayStation's classic lineup is really lackluster. Although I literally mentioned Heavenly Sword the other week as unported, and then they go and announce that for this month, but because it's PlayStation 3, it's still just streaming only. Sony's still got a long way to go. I assume it's only gonna get weirder when their line of games as a service stuff starts coming out. Speaking of, I don't know why, but it seriously feels like half of all modern video games just want you to only play it. I feel like the sheer amount of releases has slowed down immensely as we're thrown endless battle passes, season passes, microtransactions, and these things are just complaints from 10 years ago that have gotten worse and louder over time. I think that we're reaching a point where developers are gonna need to go the AA or single player route in order to maintain an audience. This is something I actually really appreciated about Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. It just had an expansion pass with some new content, and it was an easy to pick up and put down game that didn't need you to spend 3 million hours on it. Look, all I'm saying is that something like Minecraft Dungeons doesn't need to be any of this. Again, between this, Overwatch 2, and everything else, I got nothing but dread for Diablo now. Then there's the other side of the coin with Lost Ark, a game that Amazon localized earlier this year that launched with a ton of hype and interest, but also one that was pretty quickly revealed to be wildly dependent on the amount of money that you spent. Somehow that gets even worse because it's all RNG, meaning you're quite literally throwing money away and having your time disrespected. It's a shame too, because Lost Ark was pretty dang fun. How about Crossfire X, aka the most generic thing to come out in years? Also one of the only actual Xbox console exclusives in what feels like forever. Crossfire X is a revamp of Crossfire, a Counter-Strike clone that was extremely popular in the overseas market. And I mean really popular. There's a Chinese TV drama with a bunch of huge actors on it. But I, the dumb American, have never heard of it until making this video. That's probably something that we all feel. It only even hit my radar because Remedy Entertainment, the people behind Alan Wake and Control, were in charge of specifically the single-player campaign. So playing this clunky, unfun to control and personality-less shooter were shocking to say the least. This is like the type of game that would have gotten a 6 or 7 in 2010, but it's 2022 and everything here feels so dated. It's gotten a few updates, but I can't imagine the Xbox-only player base of Crossfire X, a game that I'm sure people have actually heard about, are playing this over the vast array of other free-to-play microtransaction-laden titles out there. You could basically just play Valorant. I'm glad that indies and smaller titles are getting more traction, and it'll help if there's more curation from trophy garbage on the stores. But I sincerely hope that in the upcoming years we drop the "you need to play my game for years" shtick and just focus on making a good old-fashioned video game. Does that sound bitter? I'm sorry, I'm no better. Marvel Snap is like crack to me and I can't stop. 2022 actually did have a lot of single player experiences, including Game of the Year Elden Ring, and that thing sold like hotcakes, so it's good to see that, it's well and alive. In fact, Elden Ring actually was the top selling game of the year until Modern Warfare 2 came out, but it is what it is. Anyways, it's not a worst of the year video from me unless there's some anime nonsense, and we actually almost made it out alive, but well, we didn't, because we got Samurai Maiden. Although I'm not sure who this one's for at all. Developed by Shade Incorporated, the same people that brought us Gun Gun Pixies and Kandagawa Jet Girls from a few years back, Samurai Maiden is an isekai aimed at fans of girls' love. Except it's also made by the people behind Bullet Girls Fantasia, meaning it's aimed at a very specific demographic, dirty otaku. Except it also seems to completely misunderstand the audience. The gameplay is what you would expect. It's a bare bones hack and slash that makes One-chan look like Devil May Cry 5. You've got a very simple combo strand and the ability to use your 3 other girlfriends in order to do an attack occasionally. You can't play as them, that's it. You'll be running out of variety within 30 minutes, and even the skill enhancements barely feel like they add much. But gameplay isn't even the main focus here. For some reason, Samurai Maiden is like 70% a visual novel, a very slow-paced one with girls making extremely overly pantomimed reactions to anything anyone says. You play as Tsumugi, a high school girl isekai'd into ancient Japan directly next to Oda Nobunaga and a harem of girls who think you're the chosen priestess that'll save the day or something. Along the way, you'll forge bonds with tsundere small, tsundere medium, and not as tsundere big bops while going full Yuri. It's also poorly translated, and I kinda hate using this word, but pretty cringe. On top of just weird dialogue, you got a girl introducing herself as Gen Z, and that's something that no one would ever do. Also, what do you think happens when you censor an anime booby game for anime booby game fans? You get yourself a not very good game that just pisses off the audience that bought it for that specific reason in the first place. Anytime you pause, a dark void opens up, but not the one developed by Capcom. I find it kind of weird to censor these kind of things while having all the other stuff in the game intact. According to the official website, when things get tough, you activate the devoted heart technique to have samurai and ninja lock lips to enhance their abilities. So at least they did know the type of game they were making. But with the censorship, crappy gameplay, and the fact that you can just Google something like samurai and ninja going at, I'm not really sure who this is for. I hate that I'm saying this, but there's just way better examples of this exact thing to play. Like Blue Reflection. Go play Blue Reflection. Unfortunately, Samurai Maiden was also censored on the Nintendo Switch, meaning that anyone who was hoping that Nintendo's platform would be the last bastion for anime bits and bops is sorely disappointed. I don't agree with the censorship, but it's also not a very good game, so whatever. But speaking of Nintendo and disappointing, we gotta talk about the Switch. In 2022, the Nintendo Switch just ain't cutting it anymore. You might be a little confused as to why I'm saying this, as the Switch got a lot of killer apps that were critically revered and sold like the dickens. I mean, I like some of them, but as a pure piece of hardware, this thing cannot keep up, and there are several high-profile exclusives and third parties this year that have technical issues or in some cases a lack of content. The eShop is pure agony to navigate on console, as it lags into another dimension anytime you try to move the screen down. I like to browse these stores for new releases, and between that and the shovelware flood, it's a bit of a nightmare. I am happy that they stopped doing the limited time launches like they did with 3D Mario and Fire Emblem, but their lack of giving a single care for classic games is worrying. NSO is now multi-tiered in pricing, but there's not a GameCube thing in sight. I know tons of people would love to just buy a port of something for $15 or $20 and call it a day, but Virtual Console seems to be a completely dead concept. This is all the same stuff that's been echoing for years, but for me personally, I can't even play the Switch much at all because of the performance issues and all the bigger releases. This is most definitely a me issue and something I'm sure a few others might feel as well, but adaptive resolution actually makes me feel nauseous. So as much as I'd love to play Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and knowing that I would love it, looking at the thing run actually has me getting sick. So many of these games with a ton of love poured into them have ridiculous technical issues that prevent me from playing, and other third parties are now getting a big ol' asterisk on them. In the case of Sonic Frontiers and a few other titles, it became don't play this on the Switch if possible. And that's a sign that we need new hardware. While Nintendo's had its disappointing releases this year with Switch Sports and the Mario Soccer game, there's nothing that's been more poorly received than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And I'm sure you saw this coming. Scarlet and Violet might be the great divide. I'm not much of a graphics guy. Your game can look like Bubsy 3D for all I care as long as it runs and performs well. This new generation of Pokemon straight up feels like it's falling apart at the seams. As with every other new generation that comes out, I get nostalgically sucked into making a purchase on release day, and this is the fastest I've dropped one of these so far. I had to force myself to keep playing just for footage. Pokemon is a cute kids game, and I think that's where the expectations for it should be. But it was shocking to me just to see how poorly this was performing docked at home. Constant stuttering, objects disappearing, frame rates variably dropping to where things in the back were running in the single digits. On top of that, the variable resolution making what should be pretty vistas all chunky looking. I get that Game Freak came up as developers from portables, but my expectations for performance are way higher. As far as the game itself goes, I do think that the franchise is going in the right direction. I like the aspect of an open world Pokemon where you can run around and do whatever you want. While it does feel extremely janky and unfinished on a lot of aspects, it is like the product that fans have been clamoring for since we were kids. Being like 8 on the playground wanting Pokemon on the Nintendo 64 where you can run around and catch stuff anywhere. They're getting close. Even Arceus had a bunch of technical issues, but Scarfy is a whole different level of, well, unacceptable. In a rare move, even Nintendo threw Game Freak under the bus and apologized for the state of it. Some of the glitches are Skyrim funny, but they gotta build up a lot of consumer trust to get past this in the future. Or not, because it's the fastest selling Nintendo video game of all time, doesn't really show any signs of slowing down, and it's almost like little kids don't give a single frick about any of this. At the end of the day, even with the new direction, it's still the exact same Pokemon game it's been for 20 plus years, and at this point, I don't think it's going to or even should change. It's baby's first RPG, and you know what? The world needs that. I just hope that we get some new Nintendo hardware soon so I can stop playing things on a glorified Wii U. Either that or I'll find a way to emulate Xenoblade 3. The ball is in their court. Speaking of RPGs, let's talk about Square Enix. Longtime watchers of the channel know I'm a big Filthy fan, but also kind of like rival at this point. But being a Square Enix fan this year has been kind of a difficult time. The past few years, we've seen lots of really disappointing releases come from Square Enix. Typically, I can kind of tell what a publisher's trying to do, but I have no idea with Square. Square Enix released a lot of games in 2022. Final Fantasy Pixel Remastered, Triangle Strategy, Stranger of Paradise, Live Alive Remake, 2 Voice of Cards titles, Various Day Life, Geofield Chronicle, Star Ocean Divine Force, Harvestella, Valkyrie Elysium, Dragon Quest Treasures, and more remasters than you can shake a stick at. I mean, heck, even the Wiki missed Romancing Saga Minstrel Song Remastered. And if Wikipedia is missing something, you know that there's too much. And we got Forspoken in a month. It's not stopping. All of this, of course, in the same year that they sold the entire Eidos side of their operations in order to fund NFTs, some of which are now tied to figures they're selling. Like, your Forsekin didn't do it too. Every single one of these clouds has a certificate for a dumb digital version, and I don't think I've ever seen a video game publisher misuse money this much. A lot of these games ended up being like 6s or 7s, but it felt legit like Square Enix was just throwing as much at the wall as possible in order to see what stuck. Or like they were clearing out the books for a potential sale in the future. Obviously, I have no clue, but it's disappointing to see so many mid-releases hit the stores. I actually really liked Geofield Chronicles, but Stranger of Paradise to me was a mess that got over because it memed too hard. I mean, it was pretty funny though.
Bullshit.
Unfortunately for them, Square Enix actually has both my personal worst and most disappointing video game of the year, like 2 separate titles. Y'all already know the worst. I made a 100% video on it, and I was thinking that there would be time to top it since it came out all the way in March, but no, Babylon's Fall stands tall, or at the bottom. And now, it's shutting down.
I guess. Consider this an update. Babylon's Fall is a huge flop. It doesn't play very well, it doesn't make much sense, the visuals are extremely hard to look at, and it showcased Platinum Games in a very negative light. I have a whole 35-minute long video going into detail about that, but the too long didn't watch is, it's not the worst thing I've ever played, but is a clear sign of Square going in a bad direction. Between this and Avengers, they wanted a games as a service title real bad, and as we saw with Scalebound, Platinum couldn't pull it off. The end game is mind-numbing, and for some reason my editor went and 100%ed it as well because my warning wasn't enough. Come on. Well, it turns out if you want to have that rare platinum trophy, you've only got 2 months left to do it because Square Enix announced in October that the servers are going to be shutting down in February, 2 weeks after my birthday, meaning Babylon's Fall didn't even make it a full year. And they've accepted this as a massive failure. There were a lot of apologies, and the large-scale update canceled. So since I stopped playing, here's what happened. Season 2 Battle Pass update, new weapon type with guns, a slight expansion on the story, then Season 2 was extended, a few event fights here and there, but between my video and the announcement of the end, there were only a small handful of new additions. On February 28th, 2023, Babylon's Fall is going to be one of the first console-centric games as a service to be shut down. There's a final free season pass that is basically the same stuff as Season 2, and I admire them for putting anything in the game between now and shutdown, but we've come to this really unsatisfying ending for a game that, at least in my opinion, had a ton of potential. Also, for some reason it says the final battle pass is gonna run longer than the game's gonna be up. Guys, I think you need to fix that. Despite having a lot of troubled development, multiple trailers throughout the years, multiple betas, and having a small thing going for a decent amount of time, Babylon's Fall only lasted 7 months before they decided to call it a day. And that's why to me, it's easily the worst game of 2022. While Babylon's Fall may not be disappointing for everyone, it was for me. And while the thing definitely had problems from the start, there was always like a glimmer of hope that I'd be like, yeah, this is good, but no. But also, it doesn't even come close to what I actually thought was the most disappointing game of the year. For this, we're gonna have to head back to the Nintendo Switch. Only a single week later, we'd see the digital-only Chocobo GP, a game I was pretty hyped for. This may sound kind of stupid, okay, really stupid, but I was expecting a lot out of Chocobo GP. I don't know if I'm just a huge sucker for kart racers, Final Fantasies, or dumb spin-offs, but when I saw those initial trailers, I got excited. Y'all know I love me some All-Stars Racing Transformed, and I don't hate Chocobo Racer for the PlayStation 1, so the idea of them doing something new with this was exciting. None of my issues are Switch related, by the way. This was a rare, really well-performing third-party exclusive for some reason. I was really concerned when they announced it was going to have a free version, though. Immediately triggered my fight and flight thanks to Crystal Chronicles Remastered. I think because I'm an adult who has a job, the idea of a free-to-play game is more of a warning sign than anything inviting. I would much rather pay a flat price, get a full game, and call it a day. So, Chocobo GP has a $50 entrance fee, and not even seconds into the experience, you're tossed a premium currency. Because yes, Chocobo GP stands for Chocobo Games as a Service, pussy. I hadn't played this thing since launch though, so I was amused to log in and be given apology gems. I guess I kinda get what they were trying to do. They wanted Chocobo GP to be a platform that you'd come back and play. To their credit, developer Arika did a pretty good job designing a fun kart racer. It controls well, it feels good, the items are unique. There's a cute story mode where Chocobo and friends are doing the racing thing, meeting new friends and solving mysteries or whatever. There's also an obnoxiously cute main menu theme. I don't think anyone was expecting this. And don't forget about all the crossover characters, like Final Fantasy IX's Vivi randomly questioning his existence. Is this appropriate? Even Atlas like, hey, really?
Rest assured, I will not be arresting you or any of your friends today.
It's a nice, wholesome time filled with a ton of characters and fan service that's fun for a playthrough, and it should have just been this in a multiplayer mode. But a majority of all the content in the game is locked behind the battle pass.
That's what I'm saying.
The premium 3-syllable punch that never stops giving. A $50 video game should not have a battle pass, period. I don't really do review copies, so if I'm paying a premium price
price for a game, then I'm gonna need a premium amount of content. Square Enix straight up did this in Babylon's Fall in the same month, and it's baffling to me that they thought that this was a good idea. Granted, the first pass was technically free, but it also required you to play a ridiculous amount to unlock Cloud or anything else. Granted, they have changed it quite a bit now, 9 months later, but this was unacceptable for a game that was niche enough as is. I did appreciate the fact that the free version lets you play the online Chocobo GP mode without as many limitations so as to keep a player base going, but it is ridiculous to me that they thought this would work. This silly Chocobo kart racing game should have been something I played a ton on and off for a few months, but instead they had me for a single day before I got frustrated by being locked out of progression for finishing my weeklies. Chocobo GP is a game that is still going. Heck, it's even getting a big update this week with Midgar as a racing track, so at least it's managing to stick around. But every fiber of my being is thoroughly confused that they didn't just make a completely free game on all platforms. So between Babylon's Fall, Chocobo GP, their oversaturation of the market, the sale of items for NFTs, the $14,000 Terra statue, and continuously baffling decisions, it's been pretty disappointing to be a fan of Square Enix.
Well, that's life for you.
Oh, and guess what? While writing this, like literally right before I started filming, I found out that Square Enix is discontinuing Chocobo GP after the new season. So 2 Square Games as a Service titles that are just getting discontinued less than a year after being out. Don't even know what to say. But anyway, there you have it. Another year, another video about me giving out about Square Enix and other titles. I really wish they would stop. What's disappointing for me is probably going to be radically different than what's disappointing for you, so if you think I missed anything, let me know down in the comments. I dug as much as I could, but thankfully 2022 wasn't anywhere near as bad as previous years. Unfortunately, because of how many games I play on this channel, I actually missed Elden Ring. I totally sat around and just played Babylon's Fall instead of what everyone else was having fun with, so maybe I need to change that. Actually, if you have any good recommendations, I would love to hear those as well, because pretty much recently all I play is Vampire Survivors clones and Marvel Snap, and I could use a little culture. There is, of course, one game missing from this video that a lot of people were really disappointed with, but it's also one that I'm working to make a 100% video on, as I've mentioned at the end of my last few videos. So I've been Austin, and catch me next time for my first video in 2023 when we go 100% into Gotham Knights. Also, I'll see you at MagFest. Bye. Thank you so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Avox, Aaron Kwolek, Blackfoot Ferret, Chris Shelton, Christopher Oliva, Doug Prince, DX Buster, David Molnar, Elijah, GM Pinks, Hey Quiggles, Jay Roos, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Kevin Zanowski, Kieran Arter, Nami Babs, Nick Irving, Ryan Talbert, and Shazan. Thank you so much for your generous support. 2022 was a really good year for me, for the channel, and I hope it was good for you as well. I am going to be at MagFest, not in an official capacity, just kind of roaming around. So if you see me, come say hi. And you know, hey, thanks to everyone who supports the channel. It doesn't matter if you're a Patreon supporter or if you just click subscribe or you just hate watch me sometimes. I appreciate you being here. Happy New Year's to everybody, and I'll catch you on the other side. Bye bye.